Hi everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar on organic farming and countryside stewardship. My name is Astrid Barrowman and I work for the Soil Association. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a moment to let you know about the control panel that we'll be using today. In order to avoid background noise interference, we've muted all delegates. My colleague Paul Flynn will start by providing a short update, followed by Trevor Mansfield, who will provide a 20-minute presentation on how organic farmers can use countryside stewardship, and we'll then open up for 15 minutes approximately of questions. Martin Froment, also from Natural England, will then go into a bit more detail on mid-tier options and changes for 2018, before we open again for an additional 10 minutes of questions. We'll try and save all of the questions for the end of each presentation. During the presentation, you can use the chat box and send questions directly to me. I will then read these out at the end of each presentation. You can hide the control panel by clicking on the orange arrow to ask a question during the Q&A session, along with using the chat window. You can click on the raised hand button. You will then hear an automated voice letting you know that you've been unmuted and that you can now ask your question. As mentioned, our presenters and contributors are Paul Flynn, who is Arable and Soils Advisor at the Soil Association, and he also supports members with queries regarding countryside stewardship. Trevor Mansfield is a Senior Advisor at Natural England, leading on the organic element of the Countryside Stewardship Scheme. We also have Martin Froment, who is Principal Advisor on Countryside Stewardship, and Matt Eaton is also joining us on the webinar. Matt is Lead Advisor in Devon and an Organic Specialist in Natural England. So all in all, we've got a great lineup to help get to grips with what your options are. We might not get to all of your questions today, but we'll certainly answer them directly if not. Natural England will also let you know where to go to find out more, and we'll be hosting an FAQ section on the Soil Association website pages. We're recording the session, which we'll share with everyone afterwards. We'll now make a start. So I'll pass over to Paul Flynn, who'll give you a brief introduction. So Paul, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me okay, Astrid?
Yes, perfect, thank you.
Yes, you can. That's great, thank you. So I'll just say a few words about the stewardship scheme itself from our perspective as organic farmers. A few things about the Soil Association itself and its support for you, and lastly, a few things about the organic market and just where that stands at the moment. So the first thing about the uptake of the stewardship scheme, we estimate about 1/3 of organic farmers are not taking up the support available, and that's why we're here today. This represents, we think, about 100,000 hectares and a loss of about £5 million to the industry. And this level of support clearly could provide a valuable buffer as we emerge from Europe and negotiate new terms in world markets. So a few words about the Soil Association. If you are converting to organic, then we'd like to welcome you to that. The Soil Association can help you. The Soil Association certification is the UK's largest organic certification body, and we're responsible for certifying about 3,500 farms and organic businesses all over the world. And we currently certify about 70% of the growing UK market. We work very hard on your behalf to champion organic farming and create that market and make it bigger through national and currently European policy. We have specialist certification officers in each aspect of farming, as well as our in-house team of advisors in what we call producer services. And lastly, just a few words about the organic market. While only 3% of farmland in the UK is organic, British consumers are demanding more organic produce, with UK organic food and drink market seeing 4 years of successive growth. With organic farmland more or less stable, much of this growth is being met by imports. And again, that's why we're here today. And that's particularly the case for raw materials for animal feed. The UK organic market is now worth about £2.2 billion after 6 years of growth. And this means that there are now new opportunities for organic farmers. Anyone not yet certified can receive our support. For example, you can come along to our Go Organic event on the 19th of April in Oxfordshire, and that's a one-day workshop for arable farmers thinking about converting. So contact Astrid or myself at the end of the presentation, where you'll see the details of how to get hold of us. So that's all I'll say for now, and I'll hand over back to Trevor, please.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Thank you, Astrid. And yeah, thanks for the opportunity to talk to you all today. So this is Trevor Mansfield from Natural England. As Astrid said, I have a particular sort of responsibility for the organic farming options within countryside stewardship. So I hope everyone can hear me okay. I'm just going to run through a few slides, 10 to 15, which will give an overview of how organic farmers can use the scheme. The headline message is, as we have there, really, that if you are farming organically, we want you to join Countryside Stewardship. Organic farmers are entitled to payments in recognition of the environmental benefits of organic farming systems, and these payments are accessed through Countryside Stewardship. It's worth pointing out at this point that you can apply just for the organic management and conversion options in the stewardship scheme, or of course you can add to them from the range of other options that are available to support environmental land management through the scheme, and that would of course then add to the positive benefits of your participation. Either way, whether you just go for the organic management and conversion or whether you also add other options, applications should be made through the standard Countryside Stewardship application route. So it's the same sort of route and process and timing as anybody else. The first deadline to mention, we will repeat it, is that if you're seeking to join the mid-tier of Countryside Stewardship, you need to request an application pack before the 31st of May of this year. Moving on, just a quick reminder that the scheme is all about achieving environmental benefits across a range of issues, whether that's to do with water quality, biodiversity, also historic environment, and so on, all those things that are there. And of course, the reason we have the organic management and conversion options within the scheme is because of the the recognition, as I say, of the environmental benefits that can be achieved through organic management. So I'll have a few slides which are on the range of options available to you. First of all, though, I think it's worth just looking for a brief moment on uptake so far. And essentially here, the message here is that if you have heard of sort of initial difficulties with accessing the scheme, then we've worked hard and resolved those problems. So we think it should be easier now for organic farmers to get into the scheme than it might have been when the scheme first started. So looking at the little graph there, where you've got the bars for organic management and for organic conversion, essentially the first year of application, where it says 2016, that was applications made during 2015, and where agreements would have started on the 1st of January 2016. And at that time, we had some issues with the IT system affecting the way that organic applications were handled. We worked hard, we have to resolve those issues, and it is now working as it should for the organic options. And you can see that there was an increase in uptake in the second year. I don't yet have figures for year 3, but as I say, we have resolved some of those initial sort of teething difficulties in relation to organic options. So we want people to come and join the scheme, and we do think there are organic farmers who are not taking the opportunity to join CS. And for myself, as a Natural England employee, I see that as a missed opportunity. So if we can encourage you to join the scheme, then I'm pleased to do so. Particularly, who the scheme, I would hope, would be of interest to are people who are converting to organic farming, obviously to take up the conversion options. And it's also then people who have one of the old OELS agreements. And if your OELS agreement is coming to an end anytime during 2018, then now is the time to apply for a Countryside Stewardship Agreement. And if you apply for a Countryside Stewardship Agreement, make that application this year, then that agreement would start on the 1st of January 2019. So some initial difficulties fixed. We now think it's easier to work through the system in terms of getting an application in. It should work properly, and we would encourage you to do so. If you have been in OELS, the previous scheme, you, as an organic farmer, then you would have had one option for organic management, which I think paid on average around £30 per hectare. So the first point to make is that that has changed in Countryside Stewardship. We now have these 6 categories of organic land use that you can see on the table there. And then there are separate options for each of those 6 categories for organic management and for organic conversion. Actually, it's 5 categories for organic conversion, because if you look at the bottom, enclosed rough grazing, there is no organic conversion option there. If you have such land and it's in conversion, then you would choose the organic management option that covers both. So if you were putting together an application, instead of one option for all organic management, you would pick the appropriate option from this table. The organic conversion options usually last for up to 2 years, the exception being the top fruit option, which is up to 3 years, linked to the organic conversion periods there. So I've got a few slides which will run through those 6 categories of land use and just give a little bit of explanation about each one. So the permanent grassland options, and you can see that for management and conversion, we have the 2 variants there, improved and unimproved permanent grassland, which usually leads to the question, what if the land is semi-improved? Essentially, semi-improved would go normally into the OT1 or OR1, so with the improved permanent grassland. There are some detailed eligibility requirements, which I won't go through right now, but they're all set out in all the scheme information and online, and to help you make that distinction, and hopefully it would prove reasonably straightforward to do. But so essentially, permanent grassland, we would expect to be going into one of these options. And just to note, as long as I'm not using up too much time, if you were doing a much wider stewardship application, and as part of that we're reverting some arable land to permanent grassland, or planning to do so, you would be able to use these options in that instance on land, even though at the time of application it would still be in arable cultivation. The other thing to mention here is that OT2, the option for unimproved permanent grassland, was originally limited, had a size limitation to only up to 15 hectares per land parcel, but we've removed that upper size limit. So you can now have, more than 15 hectares in a single land parcel in that option. Moving on to rotational land, so OT3 and OR3, management and conversion. This is the most widely used of the organic options, and it is for land that is part of an organic rotation, whether at any moment in time it is in cultivation or in a grass lay. The thing I'll just mention here specifically is if you're undergoing organic conversion or about to start organic conversion, if your conversion plan indicates a need to bring areas of permanent grassland, improved permanent grassland only, if according to your conversion plan you have areas of improved permanent grassland that you need to bring into cultivation to support the introduction of the organic system, then in that situation that improved permanent grassland could be brought into OR3, organic conversion on rotational land. But you would have to have that indicated in the conversion plan. The other thing to mention on rotational land, and this links back to one of the sort of initial difficulties that we have subsequently resolved, land that's in long-term lays. So it's you know, down to temporary grass for more than 5 years. Was originally intended to be eligible for the rotational land options. There was a bit of an IT problem, which we have now fixed. So the rotational land options essentially are for land that's currently in cultivation, land that's got is down as temporary grass, and land that's in a longer term lay. The rule that we have now is that the land must be cultivated at least once every 8 years. And that rule would apply when you first apply to join the scheme, and also for each subsequent annual claim. So we've just fixed that so that longer term lays, cultivation once every 8 years as a minimum, you would bring that into these rotational land options. Organic horticulture. And again, there's the management and the conversion variants. So these options are for land where horticultural crops are part of the rotation. So the land does not have to be supporting horticultural crops at all times. Uptake limited to 20 hectares per agreement. So if you had larger or more than 20 hectares of horticultural land, you could have 20 hectares using these options, and any additional would go into the organic rotational land options. So if you had 100 hectares of rotational land and grow field vegetables 1 year in 5 across that 100 hectares of rotational land, you could have 20 hectares of these options, OT4, and 80 hectares of OT3, organic management on rotational land. You can actually, during the course of the Countryside Stewardship Agreement, you can actually rotate where you locate your OT4 option around the holding, should you need to. But bear in mind, in particular, the 3rd and 4th bullet points there, which set those eligibility criterion, which must be met at all times. Okay, moving on. Top fruit then, so management and conversion options again, and this is the one where the conversion option can last for up to 3 years. Worth noting here the restriction that the land must be producing food and or non-alcoholic drinks. That's an eligibility requirement there. You would be required to provide photographs showing the trees, the bushes and their spacing, and sales receipts demonstrating that the crops are not used for alcoholic drinks. You would be required to produce those with your application. Sales receipts would also be required with annual claims, and each year a percentage of agreement holders would be asked to supply photos with their annual claim, and that's just a way of demonstrating, you know, that you are meeting those scheme requirements. The last one of those options then was that option for enclosed rough grazing, and that's the one where there's no separate conversion option. All organic land, whether it's fully organic or still in conversion, would go into this single option OT6. And as it says there, it's limited to rough grazing in the severely disadvantaged areas above the moorland line, and in land parcels less than 15 hectares. So just summing up on the organic conversion options, just as a bit of a reminder really, mostly they're payable for up to 2 years, with the exception being OR5 on organic conversion on top fruit, where it's up to 3 years. And then to try and explain these subsequent bullet points, so eligibility for annual payment for conversion options is determined by the status of the land on the annual claim date for Countryside Stewardship, which is 15th of May. So if in any year when you claim, if the land is in conversion on the 15th of May, then it would be eligible for the conversion payment. But if the conversion period finishes prior to then, so even on the 14th of May, then the land would not be eligible for the conversion payments in that year. You would expect them to have the organic management option in your agreement and to receive the management payment. So eligibility for conversion payments is dependent on the status of the land on the 15th of May in that year. Phased conversions, just to say then, so if you are converting to organic in stages across a holding, that sort of phased use of the conversion options is possible, but it should be planned from the start of the agreement. So what we can't do is keep amending an agreement to add in conversion options. What we can do is right at the beginning say, okay, these fields here, they will start their conversion options in year 2 or maybe year 3 of the agreement. So we can plan it in like that. The rule being, as it indicates there, that the land must achieve full organic status before the end of the agreement. And the final bullet point is just to mention that point that you cannot have the conversion options on land where you have previously received conversion aid in the past. So you've gone organic in the past, that land has then been taken out of organic production. You cannot receive conversion funding for the same land twice. A new land manager, in that it's taking on such land, could do, but an individual cannot have organic conversion aid for the same land twice. So then, before I pause for questions, just to note, that was a run through the management and conversion options for organic land. As I indicated at the start, you can just apply for those. You can also, and we're very keen, apply for some of the other options that are available for Countryside Stewardship to get the most of the potential of the scheme to support good management on your land. So the message here is that, yes, we would like to encourage organic farmers to consider the other Countryside Stewardship options appropriate to their farms. And the data so far indicates that most organic farmers joining Countryside Stewardship do just that. Just looking at these 5 options are options which are only available to organic farmers, so they're only available on organic land. Lots of them have sort of a non-organic equivalent within the scheme. They are, as it indicates, intended to be used on rotational land. And then, of course, there's the whole wider range of Countryside Stewardship options available where eligibility is largely dependent on the appropriate land use and nature of the land there. By way of illustration, the table there indicates those options which so far are proving most popular with other organic farmers joining the scheme. So these are the ones which are in the most number of agreements held by other organic farmers. So the other thing to mention, of course, is that the organic management and conversion options, essentially they are non-competitive. If you apply and you are eligible, you will be offered the management and conversion options. These wider stewardship options are available on a competitive basis. So we're looking at the sort of appropriateness of the options to the location and hence the potential environmental benefits that can be offered. But we certainly want to encourage people to look at these wider suite of options and think about which would be appropriate for them. Now, at that point, before we look on to changes for 2018 and so on, that's the end of the sort of run through the specifics of the organic options. So, Astrid, do we have any questions at this point?
Thank you so much, Trevor. So we haven't had any questions through on the chat window, but so I could kick off with a couple of questions myself. Can you get an application pack if you miss the deadline by a day or two?
No, I'm afraid not. It is a hard deadline. So that date of 31st of May, which I think we are going to see again in a minute, that is a hard deadline. You need to request the pack by then.
Okay, all right. And if the 31st of May is the last day to ask for the application pack, then when would someone need to send the application back in, and when would they know what the outcome is?
I might defer to Martin on that one. I think it's 31st of July for the getting the actual full application in. I'm pretty sure Martin's got a slide on that coming up.
Oh, okay. So I don't know. Do you want to wait, Martin, to answer that one?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll wait. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. And when do people get paid?
Okay, so payment is in two phases. So as I mentioned, essentially you apply now, or you request your application pack by 31st of May, and you apply. That application process goes on through 2018. Your agreement would start on the 1st of January 2019, and 15th of May is the date for submitting the claim for payment. Payments are then made in two parts. So the first part would be sort of autumn of 2019, and then the remainder would be in early 2020. So you get those two payments towards the end, and then just of the first year, and then towards the start of the second year. And each annual payment is made like that in those two parts.
Okay, great. Thanks, Trevor. I think we do have a question from Fiona. So I'm just going to unmute Fiona now. If anyone does have questions, I'll just remind you, you can use that chat window, and I'll raise any questions on your behalf. So Fiona, you should be unmuted now if you want to ask your question.
Oh, hi. Yes, I applied for my pack on the 30th of January. No sign. I did phone up Natural England. They couldn't find out why I hadn't been sent it. And I've heard that lots of people haven't got their packs yet. It would be really helpful if we could have our packs in front of us as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Fiona. Trevor, do you want to respond to that one?
Of course. I don't know, well, Martin might want to say if he's aware of any delays, but if you haven't got a pack and you've asked all that time ago, then please just drop me a quick email and I can check that out for you.
Oh, thank you.
Great, thanks, Fiona. So we haven't had any more questions through here on the chat window. So what we could perhaps do is continue on with the presentation. If people want to think about any questions that they might have, send them over to me, and perhaps we'll get Martin to go through some of the mid-tier changes for 2018 now. So Trevor, Martin's sound appears to have dropped out temporarily. Do you want to make a start on that, or maybe cover off some of the other questions that you've come across from farmers that our delegates today might be like to get a bit more information on.
Okay, I thought we heard Martin, but okay. Well, I'll carry on and go through the next few slides then, I think. And if we lose,
okay,
or if we get Martin's sound back, then that'll be good.
Okay.
But because he certainly knows more of the detail of all this than I do, but I should be able to cover it hopefully.
Okay, perfect. Before we go ahead, Trevor, we just had a question there from Martin on here, so a different Martin. So I might just unmute Martin and he can ask his question. Go ahead, Martin.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Yep.
I wondered if the restriction on cider fruit and peri pears was likely to be removed at any point.
No plans, nothing active at the moment, I'm afraid. So certainly not this year. I think it would be one for sort of post-rural development plan futures.
It does seem very restrictive. Well, for those of us who grow cider fruit.
Yeah, I appreciate that. But yeah, it's one of those ones where I'm pretty sure, I don't have the rural development plan in front of me, but I'm pretty sure it's something which has been notified as part of the rural development program, which means you have a fairly long sort of process of notification to the EU to make any changes. So I think it would be covered by that. And I guess in the current context, there wouldn't be a lot of changes like that DEFRA would be considering. So I think we have to live with it for the time being, I'm afraid.
Noted.
Great, thanks Martin for your question. So Trevor, Martin isn't back yet, so if you're happy to continue with mid-tier changes for 2018, that'd be great.
Sure, okay, thanks. Okay, so so these next few slides, and there's just a few, they are looking at countryside stewardship as a whole, so not just the organic options, and within countryside stewardship, particularly at the mid-tier. So essentially, Natural England has introduced a range of changes for applications starting this year across the mid-tier, with that aim of making it easier for customers, so farmers, land managers, and also for people involved in the administration of it as well, with the aim of improving the processing, making it quicker, making it easier for you to apply, making it easier for staff that are working through the processes, obviously to try and encourage more people to apply and to enable us to work through those applications more quickly and get agreement offers out to farmers more quickly. We're also looking to improve the mid-tier, as it says there, to make it more attractive to expiring higher level stewardship customers. And we've got a slide coming up which just shows a number of options which were previously only available in the higher tier of countryside stewardship, but are now being made available in the mid-tier as well. So we are essentially expanding the range of options available in the mid-tier. And of course, yeah, we've launched the scheme earlier, which hopefully makes it easier for people to plan. Although I recognise it's only easy to plan if you actually do receive your application pack where you asked for it. Yeah, so these options here previously were only available through the higher tier of countryside stewardship. I should have said, I don't think I sort of specified that earlier, that of course within countryside stewardship we have this higher tier, we have the mid-tier. Higher tier principally for sites that require sort of bespoke management. They might be protected sites, so SSSIs, priority habitats, places like that. Not exclusively so, but primarily places that sort of require sort of bespoke management agreement. And that had a sort of a full range of options available through that higher tier. Mid-tier, more widespread application, had most of the options available, but not all of them. So what we've done here is we've taken these options, previously only available in higher tier, and we've added them into the suite of options available for mid-tier. So hopefully that makes it more attractive and gives more opportunities but for farmers to address the sort of environmental needs on their holdings through the mid-tier. And I think this list of options that we've managed to bring into mid-tier was based on an assessment of, what the need was, what were the sort of options that people looking to come into mid-tier were asking for. So we've expanded the range of options there. Okay. So how to request the pack. So you've got the contact number, you've got the email address, and a recent change is that if you were to go to the Countryside Stewardship web pages on gov.uk website, there is now a form that you can download. It's to request your application pack. It takes you through so that you put in all the right information, and then you can either print that off and post it back to the relevant Natural England office, or you can email it back. The form has all the relevant contact details you'll need. So there's a pack request form now available online as well. I'm going to say that takes you through all those bits of information that you need to supply, which are listed there. And yeah, there's that reminder of the date. 31st of May is the final date for requesting a pack, and that is a hard deadline, I'm afraid. 1st of June, if anyone were to request an application pack, I'm afraid it would not be accepted. So this slide, again, just got the picture of the gov.uk website with one of the pages in the Countryside Stewardship collection. It's just to make the point that there are some events running. You can see at the bottom there it says updated, or near the bottom it says updated 7th of March. So this is very recent, and there's a timetable of events going on in venues around the country, being put on by advisors and agents, just taking people through the whole of the sort of process and what's available through mid-tier. Those events are running from now through to middle of May, I think. So it's worth getting a look at that website and seeing if there's an event near you. Just worth, in case there's any doubt, having this slide up here as well. So this is the government's guarantee. They will guarantee funding for Countryside Stewardship grants if these are agreed and signed before the UK departs from the EU, even if the grant agreements continue after we have left the EU. And if you're signing up to a 5-year mid-tier agreement or higher-tier agreement, that's to start on the 1st of Jan 2019, then of course that will continue after the planned departure from the EU. But we have this commitment that the government will guarantee funding for those agreements. So you can apply with confidence that the 5-year nature of the agreement will be honoured. I think if you get the agreement, those two things at the bottom there about good value for money and in line with strategic priorities, if you're offered agreement, that guarantees those 2 points there. And I think this is the final one. So it's just to say that all the information on the organic options that I ran through earlier, but also then, of course, on all the other options and the whole structure of the scheme is available on Countryside Stewardship Collection on gov.uk. There are the scheme manuals there as available as PDFs. There are some large PDFs listing all the options as well as the explanation, as I say, separately of mid-tier, higher tier, and some of the other sort of capital-only grants as well. So it's all there. You can also contact the inquirer's desk by email and phone number as well if you have any questions too. I think that is the final slide from me.
Great, thanks again, Trevor. So we've got about 20 minutes now. So if people do want to use that chat window and send across any questions, we're getting a couple of questions through on Twitter at the minute. So I'll just read those out. So a question here, why are the grazing requirements for OP4 multi-species lay so different to the conventional GS4? The mid-May to August shut-up period is not practical for many farmers and reduces take-up of this otherwise great option. So do you have anything on that, Trevor, in terms of a response?
I'm afraid I can't answer that one right here and now. I don't know whether Matt, who's on the call, if he's able to make himself heard and has any information on that. But I'm afraid I wasn't involved in putting together the details of
no problem
of the option. So I could look into it. Happy to do that,
great.
but I'll just see whether
Let's see if Matt has anything to add.
Audible.
Okay, perfect. So Matt, we've just unmuted you there.
Hello there. Yeah. Well, we consulted really widely when we looked at putting together the management of these options to make sure that they fitted within the organic system. And that included the inspection bodies as well as research bodies. The difference between that and the conventional, or mainly the difference for the conventional, is actually the maturing period for most crops and grasslands in organic is behind that for conventional, and also the species list or types tended to be a bit broader. The reason for the break is to actually create an extended period of flowering well into September. So that's why they were set up that way.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, Matt. So hopefully that'll answer that question. We've also got a question here from Ben. So Ben, I'll just unmute you. Go ahead.
Oh, hi there.
Oh, so that isn't okay. Sorry, 2 seconds. There we are. Ben, go ahead.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hi, we can, yes.
Oh, great. I was just wondering, I'm looking into expanding my farm. So it's currently last year in conversion. Is it okay to have, and I'll be buying non-organic land and converting that. Will it be okay to have kind of different streams of in conversion status?
So Trevor, is that best for you?
So yeah, I think so, and Matt can come in if he needs to contradict me. But so essentially, with Countryside Stewardship, the idea is, ideally it's one farming business. If you've got like one single business identification number, then one agreement. What we can't really do, if you've got an agreement set up, and that agreement's going to last 5 years, then what we can't really do is amend that agreement. So we couldn't add in new options or add in new land to an agreement that's set up. It might be possible if you have an agreement set up and then you buy additional land, you might be able to then set up a separate agreement on that land. And hence have different sort of conversion periods running on different agreements. Alternatively, if you've already sort of expanded and got that extra land, that point I made earlier, that you could phase conversion in your agreement. So you could have some land starting conversion in year 1. You could have some land starting conversion in year 2, provided that's all planned out at the start of the agreement. And it's possible also, if you were to take on some land that was actually, or you've got some land that's already in conversion before you apply, you could bring that land into conversion, even though you might only get 1 year's worth of conversion payments as well. So does that answer the question?
Yeah, that's really helpful. Yeah, I think that makes it all clearer. Thanks a lot.
Okay, good. Any more questions, Astrid?
Sorry, so I was on mute there. So we have had another question on Twitter. Someone wants to confirm OT5 can it be applied to a recently recreated traditional orchard, which is over 20 years. Sorry, under 20 years even. A clarification really, as it isn't stocked at a typical commercial density, but being traditional, it is appropriate spacing for the species and style for orchards. Did you get that okay, Trevor?
I think so. I'm just wondering whether I can give a definitive answer to that at the moment, or maybe I don't know whether Matt has detail on that one at his fingertips. But I would be wary of giving, a definite statement on eligibility and not being able to get it exactly right, and wouldn't want to give a wrong impression.
No, that's fine. What I'll do is let's see if Matt, we can always answer it directly as well. So Matt, did you have anything that you might want to add to that?
The orchard has to be commercial, so it can be a traditional orchard, but it must be in commercial use. That must be its main, the point of its management. There are traditional management of orchards options within the wider stewardship. This one under the organic option is a support measure for the management of orchards under organic standards. That's what the benefit is, and that's what's in it, so they must be commercially viable.
Okay, great, thank you. We've also got a question now from Paul, so I'll just pop down to you, Paul. Go ahead, Paul.
Okay, thanks, Astrid. Well, just to come back on the question about the idea of conversion or converting new land whilst having organic land. I mean, just to clarify that we can cope with that, that's fine. But in terms of inspection, we just ask that we have a different variety so that we've got a clear record of what's coming in, going out, and for the sake of being able to just tell what's going on, that we have, if possible, a different variety used on organic land and in conversion land. Okay.
Great, thanks for clarifying that, Paul. So we don't have any more questions on chat. So as I said, please feel free to send those across or raise your hand. Trevor, I didn't know if there were any other points that you wanted to cover as part of your presentation. Maybe additional questions that you've come across that might be relevant to today's webinar.
I think nothing that springs to mind. The only thing that's just in my mind that's concerned at the moment is just the lady, she's still on the line, who hasn't got the application pack yet, although she asked for it some time ago. As we've got the Natural England Inquiry's email address up on the screen, if you've tried them already and you haven't got the application pack, if my email address is trevor.mansfield@naturalengland.org.uk. So by all means, drop me a line and I'll chase that out.
Great, thank you, Trevor. And we'll share that information again after we circulate the video also of the presentation. I'll just check it with Matt as well to see if there was any pointers that he wanted to add from speaking to organic farmers. Matt, was there anything that you wanted to add today? So I don't think Matt has anything there. So I think unless we've got any burning questions, as we said, Trevor's outlined, we've got an email there that people can use to get in touch with us about any queries that they have about organic options and countryside stewardship. You can also email Paul at producer.support@soilassociation.org. I think unless we've got any additional questions, we'll probably take the webinar to a close. I'd just like to thank Trevor and Paul for their presentations. We'll circulate a video of the presentation shortly. And thank you again to everyone who's joined the discussion and the webinar today. Thank you very much.